What is up, guys, and welcome to a brand new video where I'm going to review Pokemon Legends Arceus. I actually just finished it this morning, or at least the main story portion of it. I didn't finish the Pokedex, which is one of the main things to do in the game. So there's a lot left to play, but I wanted to at least review kind of the main storyline and how I just feel overall about the game after putting, 15, 20 hours into the game at this point. I want to preface this by saying that I'm a huge Pokemon fan. Obviously, I've been playing the games ever since I was a kid. The very first video game I ever played was Pokemon Red on the Game Boy Pocket. So I have a long history with the Pokemon games, and while this is a large departure from the traditional style of Pokemon, so I'm going to break this review up into two parts. The stuff that I liked about the game and the stuff that I didn't like about the game. We're going to start with the stuff that I liked, and then we'll talk about the stuff I didn't like after the fact. So this game, in my opinion, is at its best when it's just you exploring in the open world, or semi-open world, however you want to call it, and you're catching Pokemon. It's basically a collectathon. You're running around, you're catching Pokemon, you're filling out your Pokedex, you're doing the research tasks in the Pokedex, and you're just exploring. The idea of completing the very first Pokedex is what Pokemon's all about. Collect them all has been the slogan of Pokemon for a very long time. So the fact that the bulk of this game is collecting Pokemon and filling out the very first archived Pokedex is pretty awesome. And I think that was a really good way for this Pokemon to kind of start off. Although I do think that a lot of the other things that they introduced in this game kind of detracted from that. This portion of the game, this exploration, will be very fun to do with shiny hunting and things after you finish the main story and you kind of go into like the post game of the game. So every Pokemon, when you catch it, goes into the Pokedex, but you haven't completed their section of the Pokedex yet. You have to fill out a certain number of research tasks to get them to level 10, I think, in the Pokedex, and then it will count as like completed, although there are more research tasks to do after that. So I still haven't quite figured out how they come up with that 10 number. Even after playing for 15, 20 hours, never figured out how they come up with that 10 number. I have no idea. So one of the big different things about just running around the open world and catching Pokemon is that you can catch Pokemon in multiple different ways, and that depends on whether or not the Pokemon's temperament is one way or the other. There are some Pokemon that you can really only catch from hiding from them and making sure that you're not seen. There are some Pokemon that you can just run up and catch because they have like a normal disposition. They're totally fine with being caught. And then there's other Pokemon that are aggressive and you'll have to fight to catch. If they see you, they're going to try and attack you and fight you, and you have to fight to catch them. I thought this was really cool because it kind of forces you to get to know certain Pokemon. You kind of approach every scenario a little cautiously. You're like, well, can I just walk up to this? And then you walk up to it and it's like, I'm going to attack you. And you kind of start to get to know each Pokemon in the different areas as you travel around the areas, which I thought was really cool. When you are catching Pokemon, the battling in the game is pretty fun because your trainer can take damage. If you're just in the overworld and you get attacked by a Pokemon, you can take damage and you can actually black out just from being attacked yourself as a trainer by the Pokemon, which is pretty interesting. I actually had a battle where I was battling a water type Pokemon and I was standing stupidly in between my Pokemon and the water type Pokemon, and the water type Pokemon used Bubble at my Pokemon and it hit me as the trainer, and actually I fell over. And I thought that was pretty awesome because that's exactly how it would go. Like if you get caught in the middle of a battle between Pokemon and you get hit by their move, like that's pretty cool. There's also some free flow mechanics that you can actually run around in battle, so to try and avoid exactly what I just did by getting hit by Pokemon. But yeah, you have some sort of limited movement within kind of the battle area, which is pretty awesome as well while your Pokemon is battling. This game also treats your Pokemon more like JRPG characters than traditional Pokemon games have. So when a Pokemon can evolve, you have to manually start the evolution. It doesn't just start the evolution, you have to cancel it. It's a manual thing that you can do. So let's say that you have some more stuff that you have to do in the Pokedex, including a certain Pokemon, then you can wait to evolve that Pokemon until you've completed the Dex, and then you can evolve it, as well as switching out moves. Switching out moves is also a manual feature. So when your Pokemon levels up and it learns a new move, it'll say on the left, level up, learned move. And then you can actually go into the Pokemon and you can see all of its moves that are available for you to swap in and out. And you can swap them in and out however much you want. So if it started with Bubble and then it learned Water Pulse, I can swap out Bubble for Water Pulse. But then if I'm like, oh, actually, I want this Pokemon to know Bubble again, I can swap them back out. So you don't lose the ability to learn that move again. It just goes into a move pool, which you can freely swap in and out, which I actually liked. I actually think that's really cool. There's also events that happen in the world that are called distortion events that happen in the different areas, and they happen for a limited amount of time. But if you go into this distortion area, basically it will start, and then all these like high level interesting Pokemon can like pop in there, and you can start being attacked by them. And sometimes you can get in fights that are like 3 versus 1. You have 3 Pokemon that you have to fight versus your 1 Pokemon. So they can be pretty harrowing, and you have to go in with the mindset of like, you got to try and catch as many Pokemon as possible. It's really hard, I felt like, to sneak up on a lot of these Pokemon. Like, they're just ready to fight you. So you have to go in with, I'm going to have to fight these Pokemon. I should bring healing items and stuff, but you can encounter some really cool Pokemon and some pretty high level Pokemon in those areas. Those are pretty cool. Those events are pretty awesome. All right, so there's obviously some other gameplay mechanics which we will address in the bad section, but I wanted to touch a little bit on the story. Now, the majority of the story I wasn't a huge fan of, but there is a section of the story that I thought was actually really cool, and that is kind of the part 2 of the story. And I won't go into details of part 2 because I don't want to spoil anything, but part 2 is where kind of the game takes a turn, and you start to actually feel like there are consequences to actions, and there's an actual threat upon the world that you're trying to help with. In the first section of the game, I didn't really feel a threat. I didn't really feel a looming threat. It was very predictable. Some of the boss fights were very underwhelming. It was just kind of like, nah. And unfortunately, that part of the game is like 15 hours of the game, while the cool storyline, in my opinion, takes place in the last about hour and a half of the game. I thought it was really awesome. We actually got to a point where I started to feel like something was actually threatening the world, and I was the only one who could stop it, and there were these cool, like, boss battles with these interesting Hisuian Pokemon and stuff, and that part of the story I thought was quite good. Unfortunately, you have to slog through the first 15 hours, which we'll talk about in the bad section, that I thought was a slog. Another interesting thing about the story is that it takes place in the past. So a lot of stuff you already know about, you're kind of inventing them, sort of. Like there is a particular item later on in the game that you see basically the invention of this item that is a very popular and mainstay kind of important item in Pokemon, which is really cool. The last thing I'll say that I think is really good about the game is that there is actually a crafting system. They decided to add a crafting system to the game, which I thought was pretty awesome. So when you're running around the overworld, there's different things that you can send your Pokemon out to attack, like different trees and stuff that will drop different berries that you can use to create potions and Pokeballs. And there's different like ore that you can pick up to also create Pokeballs, and you're actually crafting Pokeballs throughout the course of the game, which is pretty awesome. You can also buy a lot of the crafting materials from the store that's in the main town, but overall, the crafting system I thought was actually pretty cool. So now that we talked about all the things that I actually liked about the game, we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about the game. I actually feel like a lot of the stuff that I didn't like is more impactful to me about my overall thoughts about the game than the stuff that I actually enjoyed, that they actually changed about the game. So let's talk about some of the stuff I didn't like. There was just a lack of innovation when it came to this game. Yes, is it very different from earlier Pokemon games? Yes, they definitely made a change. They definitely kind of changed genres even in a way. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate that they took the chance and they moved into kind of this newer, more open world feel that this game has. In doing that, they didn't make the necessary updates, I feel like, to make it feel as impactful as it could have. This game does not feel like a game that came out in 2022. The game's graphics are not good. The performance is not good. In some of the boss fights, the FPS, you can see things just jittering across the screen. The performance of this game is not good, and the graphics look like a high-end 3DS game. They do. I'm sorry, they do. I know some people are like, well, that was just the art style. No, the art style is, even if it's the art style, the graphics and the polygons and the textures and the smoothness of characters and the harsh, like, blinding highlights on Pokemon and stuff, it could have just looked so much better than it did. Absolutely, this is not a hardware limitation at all, because you see the other games coming out from Nintendo, including Super Mario Galaxy and Breath of the Wild, and these other games that have these big open section, open world elements. They're beautiful games. This game could have looked so much better than it did, and it would have improved the game so much if they had taken more time to update the graphics to 2022 graphics. The second update that needs to be made, especially if we're going to be moving into these larger style of games with an actual like storyline, is voice acting. This game has a very limited number of characters that you ever talk to or run into. There is not many characters. There's hardly any NPCs. There's no NPC trainers actually in the world that you fight. You only fight people who are kind of integral to the main story. Those characters, there's probably 10, maybe 12 of those characters in total. They could easily have given them voice acted lines, which would have helped this so much. You can attach yourself to them more. You can give them more of an attitude. Instead, you just read text constantly, and you know, that's how Pokemon's been up until this point, but this feels like a game that is trying to push the boundaries, and it needs to push the boundaries by making these updates that bring it into the current generation of gaming. And I'm sorry, but I'm over the whole, like, main character that never blinks and just stands there while people are talking to him, and then you just make a dialogue decision and nothing happens and he just still doesn't blink the whole time. I'm done with that stuff. I'm so done with that. Like, I cannot connect to a main character like that at all. He doesn't have an attitude. He doesn't have a personality whatsoever. He just stands there and is like, oh yeah, okay, the world's ending. I'm just gonna stand here and look like a moron. The next thing I want to talk about is the battling. So the battling is interesting in this game. They introduced two elements called strong style and agile style. So when you use or if you level a Pokemon to a certain amount, they learn a move, or they master a move, I guess is probably the more correct term. Basically, they've used a move or they've known a move for so long that they've mastered it, and now you can do it in different styles. Now this is really cool. Agile style basically makes your Pokemon faster and gives it the opportunity to possibly go twice in a row before the next Pokemon can go. Strong style makes your Pokemon stronger but slower. There's kind of opportunity costs to each move. Basically, you get a bonus and you get a decrease. So do you want to go fast and not hit as hard, or do you want to hit hard but not be as fast? The only problem here is I never used it. You never have to use it. I don't think any wild Pokemon use it, and some of the boss fights they definitely use it, but you don't have to. I mean, there were points when I was 10 levels lower than the boss that I was facing, and I was still able to beat them, and I never used the strong style or agile style. So I mean, I guess there's the choice to use it, but you never have to. It doesn't put the mechanic in the game in a way that forces you to learn it. You just never have to use it if you don't want to. So part of me is kind of like, maybe they should have enforced it more. Like maybe they should have made it so that you have to use them, but I never did because you never had to. It also felt weirdly balanced where let's say I would be using Luxray, and I would be facing a water type Pokemon that was like 15 levels lower than me, and he used Bubble, and somehow that would take like half my health away. It felt weirdly balanced where you felt like you were using a Pokemon that was a good matchup against the Pokemon you were facing, but they would use a move that was the opposite type of the Pokemon you're using, and somehow it would do an insane amount of damage. And super effective moves in this game are insane. There is so much one-shotting in this game. I was one-shotting Pokemon that were 20 levels higher than me at one point just because I was using a super effective move. Okay, before we hop into story, this technically is a battling mechanic thing. They introduced dodge rolling in this game. Dodge rolling, that super innovative thing that's never been done before in a video game that we need to, for some reason, put a lot of emphasis on in this game. Dodge rolling. You know that storyline section that I said was really bad, the first 15 hours of the game and the first 5 boss fights? That's because the first 5 boss fights aren't Pokemon battles. They're these really terrible platforming fights where your character has to dodge roll out of the way of certain fights and throw dust just over and over and over again. That's all you do. They have a pattern of about 3 moves, and they do that, and you use your dodge rolling, and then you just throw dust. And it's super repetitive, and it just didn't feel like Pokemon at all. You're gonna put boss fights in the game. I want to fight it with my Pokemon. Like, that's why I'm training my Pokemon, right? And luckily, in the second half of the game, or the second part of the game, the boss fights are Pokemon battles, but it just felt weird to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna dodge roll around and throw dust at Pokemon. And it's like, you have a belt full of strong monsters that you could fight this Pokemon with, and you're just gonna dodge roll and throw dust. That's all we're gonna do. And all those fights were tedious and boring, and I hated it. And they were so repetitive. Oh, by the way, later on in the game, there's another one. Very impactful fight. Super impactful fight that should have been a Pokemon battle. ended up being a fucking dodge roll and throw dust battle. It's insulting. Those battles, in my opinion, are insulting. You're adding dodge rolling to a game. Wow, I'm pretty sure there's been dodge rolling in games for 20 years. And then for some reason, you think adding the dodge rolling to the game is the gimmick that you're going to use for major fights in the game? Not even in a Pokemon game where you should be facing Pokemon with the Pokemon that you're leveling and you're working hard to like level up and become more strong. Instead, you're going to make boss fights in the game be just dodge rolling and throwing dust? Why would you think that that's okay? Why would you think that anyone wants to do that? So in Pokemon fashion, obviously, the tutorial of this game is about an hour and a half, I would say, of a lot of talking, a lot of explanation, a lot of stuff you've heard a billion times before. The dialogue, the written dialogue in this game, none of the characters are very interesting, in my opinion, and whenever you start to get to know a character, a new character pops up. They just replace it basically with a new character. There's only maybe 2 or 3 characters that you actually like carry with you throughout the game. They kind of set up a Pokemon, a trainer, another survey core team member as like your rival, but then you only battle her like twice, and then at a certain point she just disappears from the game in general. A lot of the story stuff that they're telling you, I mean, there's a point where they literally like, there's the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan, you know, because we're in Sinnoh and it's Gen 4. So there's the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan. There's a point where one character tells you all about the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan. And then another character you go and talk to tells you about the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan, the exact same information. And then you go to a third character and you talk to them and they say the exact same information for a third time. There's so many points in this game where they are just reiterating on themselves and they're just wasting your time. Also, the story is incredibly predictable. It's very obvious where it's going. It just takes too long to get there to where it actually starts to get interesting. But when it does, it is interesting. I'm not saying that, you know, the story doesn't get to a point where it finally becomes interesting, because it did. It just took 15 hours to get there. Also, don't even get me started about the Team Rocket-like group in this game. I don't even remember what they're called. They only show up like 3 times. They do nothing, and they're super annoying. All of the trainer fights in this game, you are fighting mostly 1 or 2 Pokemon, and then the final trainer fights in the game, you're facing 4 Pokemon. So you never actually face a trainer or a battle of a character with 6 Pokemon. Never. You never do. And like I said before as well, you're facing level 65 Pokemon toward the end of the game. 60, 59, 60, around there. And my Pokemon were level 45, 48, easily beating them. I didn't even, like, it was easily beating them because the battle system is so weird. I was really enjoying that last part, that last hour and a half, up until the final battle. Because the final battle is not a battle. The final battle, the final fight of the game, what everything has been culminating toward, is a fucking dodge roll and throw dust battle. That to me was the biggest insult at the end of the day. The story in this is very Zelda-esque, especially toward the end. Toward the end, it's like, gather the 3, pieces of the thing and bring them back, and then the Pokemon will open the thing and then get you this thing. And it's like, yes, okay, I get it. I've done this before, I think. Go to the different areas on the map, collect the 3 different pieces of this final item, and then we'll get the final item, and the final item will be the thing that we'll have to use to finish the game. It's like, yes, that sounds a little bit like the Triforce. So there were so many times during when I was playing this game where I was like, oh, are we going to have to do this because this is what they do in Zelda? And then I was like, yep. It's important to look and compare not only the games to the predecessors in the series, but 2 games that are coming out right now. 2 games that are on the same system. Because this game does not match up to any of those games. This game borrows from all of those games and does it worse. And the only thing that's good about this game is the fact that it allows you to run around and catch Pokemon and be in a world that we've all been wanting to be in for 20 years. Is a world that we can run around and catch Pokemon and fill out a Pokedex and collect them all, right? That is when this game is the best. Everything else in this game lacks any innovation, lacks any creativity. Nothing is different. It's different within the context of Pokemon. Yes, which I appreciate, I applaud, because there are parts of this game that are really good, but most of this game does nothing new. It's nothing innovative. within the realm of gaming. We need to want more from them because this is not it. It feels like the last few games, Pokemon Sword and Shield with the wild area, right, was kind of like a beta to this game, which is more open. And then this game feels like a beta to like some grand adventure game Pokemon that they're coming up with and that they've been testing on us for 4 years now. They're testing these Pokemon games on us. Will they like this? Will they like this? And if we keep eating this shit up and saying, "Oh yeah, we love it," then what are they gonna do? They're not gonna innovate. They're not ever gonna put out the game that we're all looking for. A beautiful game that's actual next-gen graphics that we can run around in the world in, that has innovative gameplay, that changes up the formula. This is not that. It's not. I want it to be, but it's not. I want Pokemon to be more. We should all want something great, not just this shovelware stuff that they keep putting out to us. Let's step up the game, guys. Let's hold them accountable. Let's get that game that we want. See you on the next video.